Fourth Revolution, Redefining the Game and Shaping the Future. Nimish from Nodwin Gaming, Anuj from Nautilus, Karan from Krafton, Dr. Rushindra from Global Esports, and Animesh from 8-Bit Creatives. And Nishant from AFK Gaming will be moderating the panel.
Yeah, that's what.
We're going to beatbox now.
Check, check. Okay, awesome. Let's start. The countdown timer has started. Welcome, everyone. We're here to discuss India's esports revolution, redefining the game and shaping the future. Let's start this off with a quick introduction. Let's start from the very end then. Nimish, please introduce yourself.
My name is Nimish. I work with Nodwin Gaming, and yeah, I live in Goa.
Hi, I'm Anuj, CEO and director of Nautilus Mobile and creator of Real Cricket. We're based in Pune.
Hey guys, I'm Karan Pathak. I work at Krafton India as the esports lead.
My name is Dr. Rushindra Sinha, and I'm the CEO and founder of Global Esports, and we have an esports team that represents at VCT.
Hi everyone, I'm Animesh Agarwal. I'm also known as 8-Bit Thug. I'm the co-founder of 8-Bit Creatives, which is a gaming talent and consulting agency, and also the co-founder of SATL Esports, which is another esports team like Rishi's.
I love how all of you gave this very school-like introduction, like I've pulled you up for a presentation, yeah? For those of you that don't know, I'm co-founder and CEO of AFK Gaming. I'm moderating these fine gentlemen today. The idea of this discussion is to give you some actionable insights to take away from here and to, of course, keep a freewheeling conversation about where esports is going next. Let's open up with a discussion around the role of partnerships in the ecosystem, right? Let me start with Nimish. You've done a lot of work with Nodwin, building partnerships for brands, for teams, for tournament organizers. How are these collaborations shaping the esports industry in India today?
Well, I think if you look at the last 10 years, there's a classic story that everyone talks about how they started doing esports events where brands would tell them, "Oh, give me a mouse and I'll give you a mouse pad, but then return it back to me." And then just last year, I think just end of last few months, Krafton did like a massive event in Kochi. We finished the BGMS a few months back. I think Sky also did like a big project in Counter-Strike. And brands are spending upwards of $200, $300, $400,000 in sponsorship. So we've come a long way already. But yeah, I would say if you compare it with other entertainment, and a bunch of other things happening around, I think we have a long way to go. I would love to see a day where, similar to what happened with the Coldplay tickets, something like that might happen with gaming and esports one day. I think that's when we will probably see that, okay, we're at par with entertainment, right? But we've made a start. Hopefully we continue and get there soon.
Now, Animesh, you've done similar work from the team and player side of things, right? Lots of cool collaborations under your belt, under 8-bit creatives as well. Talk to us about how that's shaping revenue models for players, for talent in the industry.
See, like Nimish said, that times are changing in India with how brands perceive esports. Initially, when I started my career way back in 2019-20, managing partnerships for my team or maybe a few of my creators, it was more of value-based partnerships where it could be monetary, it could be non-monetary, because we were proponent of esports, just wanting brands to talk about esports, bring gaming as one of their marketing mixes and etc. But nowadays, if you, like you mentioned, like we have seen a big boom in how brands are investing in esports and gaming as a whole. Talk about their tournaments, talk about the IPs that we build, or maybe you build, or everyone sitting here builds. So I think it's grown a lot. It's generating very good revenue for people who were very clear from the very beginning that they want to build a monetizable asset and not another cost center for their P&L. So if you look at me from like a lot of organizations who are now able to sustain, because we have had a big esports winter in India, almost 18 organizations shut down in the last year and a half. So I think we are in a very bad shape the industry looks in a bad shape, but not for those teams who have from the very beginning thought that revenue is the way to go about it and not just infusing capital. And I think for us, it has done wonderfully well. I think it all comes with serving our partners really well, taking care of their requirements, ensuring that our requirements really match with theirs. So it's like treating like you call it a partnership for a reason, right? We take care of their requirements and they do of ours. Like if I look at it, we work with a very key partnership that happened in Indian esports, which I feel is that the IQ Soul deal. First of a kind, naming rights. We have seen Demon Kia, we have seen, I think, FTX 100, FTX TSM. So that was one of a kind of partnership which evolved over the last 3 years. I worked with them for 2 years. We built trust, and then, then they threw the race of space that, okay, Thug, we have this for you. Are you interested? And it was a game changer because after that we saw other teams also jump in. So for me, apart from building revenue, it's also a lot about building value for each other, because revenue might come in. There are so many sources, so many areas of gray from where you can get revenue, but to get those value-based revenue and also building non-monetary value alongside it's very important in every partnership.
Excellent response there. Rushi, first of all, congratulations. You've recently turned profitable, or at least cash flow profitable.
Thank you.
This is a big deal for an esports team in India, I have to say. Right?
Sounds a lot better on paper than it is in reality, but yeah.
No, so tell us about how you've made that happen and what role did brand partnerships in the esports ecosystem play? Because you've done this both from an India perspective as well as from a global perspective. How has a team sitting out of India done this?
So in fact, I was going to ask Animesh a few questions after he was done, but let me answer your question first. With regards to our profitability, I think majority of that is because of the revenue that we're getting through the VCT partnership program. I think that for us has been our largest peg for our revenue. Before we got into VCT, majority of our revenue would come from our studio. And since we've gotten into VCT, not only has our revenue 4x'd, but I would say about 75 to 80% of our revenue is now VCT driven. Not a lot of it, surprisingly, from brand partnerships. I mean, we're nowhere close to as good as the guys at 8-bit or SATOL. Brand partnerships have been the smallest part of our revenue. And I think that's where we have a lot of potential to grow. And that's why now going into 2025, that is where we will be putting a lot more of our focus. Our focus has been very hardcore on the esports side of things, ensuring that we have our operations in place, our logistics in place, the players, the right training setup, everything else. Content was always secondary. The quality of content, because of our studio, was always great, but the distribution, the things that these guys are really good at, we are still catching up and learning. I think that's where they have had, I would say, a head start on the brand partnership side. In fact, that's what I wanted to ask you. You said that a lot of your brand partnerships has kept esports sustaining, but isn't that a lot of what's coming from content? Now, hypothetical question, would the IQ deal have been a lot better instead of doing it for your esports team if you did it for a content group? Because it would have generated more viewership and more value for the partner.
See, I believe that in India, it's always been that content has been more expensive. And like if you look at SATUL and how people perceive it, if I obviously would want to do a content deal and get way more money for myself, but I think gaming industry, the marketing spend on the gaming industry is still a very small chunk of the larger marketing spend. So I don't believe that I would be able to pull that off now. So realistically, definitely that would have been a way more beneficial deal, but I don't think it's possible right now in this market. I think another 5 years from now, maybe we could have a content group sponsorship or, a brand coming and saying, take my entire year's gaming vertical budget and, do whatever you want to. Give me a complete package. I think this is something Nimish can explain better because I've seen Nodwin package a lot of things a lot of times. Like maybe you could talk about your women partnership. I've seen women in VCT, then you guys do influencer partnership. It's a package.
Yeah, but as you rightly said, I think it's something that takes time. Also depends on the brand manager. Also depends on the brand. How invested they have been in gaming or esports. Someone like an HP has been doing it for so many years, so they understand the ecosystem much better. They bring in some of the global practices to India as well. But yeah, I would say this is always going to be a catch-22 situation where is it sports first? Is it content first? I think the more we incline towards content, the more it's going to get harder and harder for the larger ecosystem to survive. Because remember, the minute this becomes a content play as gaming, then you're competing with the likes of Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hotstar and Bollywood movies and basically any sort of entertainment, right? Sport is what kept it alive. Sports is what actually gets premium in this country. The pinnacle, of course, is the IPL. So we as industry folks have to be also very careful about how do we kind of place this, right? Yes, it's entertainment and it's a lot of content, but if we don't take care of the sporting aspect of this business, I'm going to say another 5 years down the line, you don't know what the world's going to be, man. Today the kids are happy watching 10, 20-second content. Tomorrow they might just not even have that, have 5-second. I don't know. I don't know what kids are going to watch. When I look at my son today, the way he consumes content is so different. So it's a very thin line that honestly nobody has an answer to. We can keep trying, and some of us are succeeding, some of us are not, but we support each other and we see how it goes.
Super. Let me jump to the publishers in the room, right? I want to talk to Karan first and then to Anuj about this. As publishers, as people that have control of the ecosystem, how do you lay the foundations for various stakeholders like tournament organizers, teams, agencies, etc., to succeed in the space? And how do you balance that with the objective of growing your game as what it is, which is a video game?
That's actually a very good question. I wasn't expect this to come. But honestly, like Nimish just said, that we are actually focusing towards creating an ecosystem and not just talking about just BGMI. Me and Anuj just had a chat outside talking about the Real Cricket Tournament. That was a success. One of the brands that we've been supporting in our campus tour. While the craze for BGMI cannot be compared in the country, the love for the game cannot be compared with any other games. We've been blessed with the love of the audiences. We weren't able to have a sustainable year in the past. Since the launch of BGMI, this was the first year where BGMI didn't have any issues. We had 2 tournaments that was all in the plan, and then we had the campus tour, which is going on. So we targeted on the reach this year to make people more aware of what Krafton is doing as an entity. We focused on real cricket. He wasn't really expecting it to be added in our roster, but we did. We supported Nodwin with Master Series, which was superb this year. It broke another few records. Sky was always there, Rushi and Thug doing a lot of stuff. So all of these things together, it was a package for us. Yes, while team owners faced a difficult time, sponsors are still trying to understand what the ecosystem is all about. We're providing that sort of feedback to the sponsor. So if XYZ sponsor comes to us as Krafton that, hey, what is this guy exactly doing? Firstly, we are educating them as to what esports is, what the job role of these organizations are, what these owners are actually doing, what costs are they actually bearing. For them, it's just 4 kids playing, and it's a mobile phone that you buy, which is the latest one, whichever the one they want. And they don't actually look at the coaches, the dietitians which go behind them, the trainers, the entire house that they are actually living in, the boot camps. There's a lot of investment that goes in. So sponsors are now reaching out to us to have a word. talk about what are the investments, and then reaching out to them after that. So while, yes, all of us are money hungry, we want to make a profitable ecosystem in place, but that is going to happen with consistency and stability. So right now, our focus is to make a stable environment for every element of the ecosystem, because it's just not organizers. Players do not receive enough opportunities. So there is campus tour, which is just the beginning of reaching out to the grassroots levels, giving them certain recognition, which team owners can later on scout on. We're collecting data around that. The website is soon to be launched. I've been saying that for the past 3 months, but we've been adding more and more details to it every time that we look at it, every time that we review what's happening. Because once we do launch it, we don't want people to say that, hey, we waited for nothing. So we are equipping it in such a way that each and every element, including vendors, production houses, you will have something as a talent, would be able to engage with the esports audience better. So true, there are challenges, I am not denying that. But if we stabilize and look at consistent performance, there is always going to be growth in the system.
Anuj, just to build on to that, you come at this from a lens of having a game that is, it's a fantastic sport, it's a fun game to play, but it's hard to convert that into an esport. You've done it successfully with GEPL. How has that experience been for you, and how are you laying the foundations for other stakeholders to succeed within that ecosystem?
So I think, see, one thing that we consciously tried with Real Cricket to do, and this is going back to the fundamentals of what is a successful esports game, right? A game needs to be dynamic. A game needs to be incredibly hard or almost impossible to master, right? I think we focused over the last 3 years just trying to get there from a gameplay experience perspective. Being a cricket game, we have some advantages and then we have some disadvantages, right? The advantages is that everyone sort of understands the sport, at least in this region, right? So it actually becomes a great game to sort of push the whole esports narrative. And, I remember going to an event, a Valorant event, and I was sat next to Mr. Boman Irani, right? And he was like, "Hey, can you explain what's happening over there?" Right? And actually, for esports to be truly successful, viewership has to improve, has to increase. And I think the advantage for someone like us with cricket is everyone understands it, right? So we're playing to that strength of ours. The disadvantage, obviously, is, we have a real world equivalent. So, there is the option of switching on the TV and watching the IPL and all of those things, right? But with GEPL, what we try to do is to create something unique. Look, India is a mobile-first market, right? We sort of just leapfrogged the whole console generation and sort of went into mobile completely. Now, the terrific part of that is the penetration, the smartphone penetration, right, has allowed people who otherwise would never be introduced to gaming, right, from tier 2, from tier 3. In fact, India's top players, some of them, Thug is from Guwahati, right? And then you have, I think, Scout is from Vapi, right? You'd never think that, people from those regions would end up and represent gaming at a national level, But I think that's what the mobile penetration, mobile first. India is very unique from that perspective. I think we need to take advantage of that. We as game developers fundamentally believe, like, we know how hard software adaptation is for getting people to, sort of play and adapt to our games. And it becomes incredibly hard if the hardware adaptation is also required, like, which is the case with the console and the PC market, right? Because the hardware adaptation is not happening. If I go and create Real Cricket for console tomorrow, I have to first depend on the consoles to be sold, and then my game to be adapted, or my game to be sort of discovered on the store or sold in terms of CDs, right? So this is a unique advantage that we have in a huge population. And I think what we're trying to do with Real Cricket is we've built the experience. Now we're building the first ever sort of e-cricket franchise league in the world. And true ambition for us is, we've played BGMI, we've played Valorant, we played all the other mobile games and PC games which are exportable, but none of them have been made in India. And for me, my dream will come true the day Real Cricket becomes India's first export to the world in terms of esports.
Excellent. I want to turn the discussion towards unique challenges that we face in the Indian ecosystem now, right? So let me start with you, Rishi. Talk to us about what's been the hardest part of building an esports team. let me throw some prompts your way. Was it infrastructure? Was it negotiations with players? Was it monetization avenues? What were your biggest struggles when setting this up?
Uh, I think every year that we have been operational, we've had new challenges and new troubles, and that also means we've had to pivot almost every year that we've been operational. Recently, since we got into VCT, I would say the most difficult part has been handling all the operational and logistical stuff, getting incorporated in South Korea, working on the taxation and legal side with the Indian government, with RBI, with the Korean government, with transactions going between India and Korea, because all our payments city come from USA to Korea to India. So there's multiple countries. We have to have our tax forms from USA, then make sure we have tax exemption from Korea, and then also report everything to RBI. So just working with all the compliances, the visa issues for our players that we had. Even now, as of yesterday, one of our players, Patrick Watson, his visa got denied. So he's stuck now in Philippines while all the other players are in South Korea. Hopefully we get it sorted by next month because our season starts in January. But this is things that we are continuously facing because the league is in Seoul and this is something that's happening across regions. So we thought it was only a Asia thing, but when we spoke to all the teams from North America, they were having similar issues where all the Brazilian players could not be in LA because their visas were not getting sorted because the US visa is really hard to get. Similarly, the EMEA league is happening in Berlin. So all the players, all the Turkish players did not get their visa going into Germany because getting a German visa is really hard. So that's why it's a lot of logistical and operational things. I think the esports side, the gaming side, because we come from that background, was relatively easier for us. That's where our expertise was. The things that were harder were the operational compliance, financial things that we had no idea. We almost had to figure it out as we went along and hopefully not breaking any laws in the process. Because we were having to learn on the fly. So every year has been entertaining and challenging, and we have, by the end of the season, figured out what those problems were and solved them. Now in 2025, we'll know what comes our way.
Okay, let me rephrase that question a little bit for you, Animesh. When setting up an esports team in India, right, and so Rushi comes from the perspective of having a team that has to deal with cross-border transactions and those complexities, right? Specifically to India now, what are the challenges that you have faced when setting up the team and making sure it's operating smoothly?
See, for me, I had a big early mover advantage of entering mobile esports. You know, when NTT and Global Esports Signify they existed, they were all PC-centric teams. I started with mobile gaming. So for me, like, it was like a new game that just came in. I had the, backing of representing India for the first time for PUBG Mobile. And then for me, starting, initially it was obviously monetization or just the capital bit. But I believe that every team goes through the same process. It starts with, player negotiations and the learning curve that keeps growing. And then at some point, it's gonna be, sustainability. I believe infrastructure is a one-time thing. It's always going to be a one-time hiccup unless you are going for a major expansion. Like if you look at us, we set up our gaming house, the 2.0, 4 years back, and we did not have to do any major changes. Monetization is a cyclical thing. There could be some quarters that are amazing, and then some quarters you have a slump. So I think that's a part and parcel every business. Then if you look at players, I mean, like you are dealing with kids, so it's like I myself been through that phase. You get so much salary, you have so much salary, you have so much access to money so early in your life. So you are definitely, you tend to go rogue. So that's a part of management of every business. So I believe that is also a part. Some years you would have a great roster, some years you would have the tough little kids to manage. So I don't believe that there is any particular stump, but yes, one external factor which never remains in our hands is the market conditions. I mean, like until 2023, early, we were Indian esports, the investments in tournaments and everything was booming. We had all streaming platforms coming in with big checks, spending heavily. Everyone was living their dream life. And then suddenly one fine day, someone shut their shop and like a lot of others followed the suit, which include organizations. This is external market condition. Also with the war and everything that happened, funding slowed down. So this is external condition. Now this conditions lead to a longer winter, which is still existing. So if you look at how, like, going back to the first topic, the revenue and monetization. Now the way I'm monetizing now is very different from what I was doing way back then when, I was being backed by companies who have insane capital to spend. Now I'm answerable. So, these are some challenges which are difficult to navigate. But apart from that, I think everything else is just a part of business. And I believe that not a challenge, but one thing I would like to say on this, like while making a team, running an esports team, even if you're not able to monetize, every team owner, everyone who wants to start a venture needs to know one basic principle of business. Money saved is money earned. people have come with heavy capital and they have shut their shops in 6, 7 months. I think that has harmed the industry more than any other factor. Like, it leaves a ripple effect that spares no one. Even us sitting at the top are people who have just started.
I hear you. And, let me take that same sentiment over to Nimish now because you come from an era where you've had to do tournaments for returnable mouse pads, right? Nodwin as a company has gone through this era of, hey, we'll take a couple of mouse pads from a brand, we'll do the tournament, we'll give you back the mouse pad. No one's really got anything out of it except for maybe the players in that bargain. How have you as a tournament organizer navigated this ecosystem and come out on top today? And what do you think is the road ahead, right? Because it's scary to rely on overfunded companies all the time to fund your pipeline of revenue.
No, I'm saying I think Nodwin also have gone through the same challenges that the team has, right? What people don't understand is that the effect of one player getting paid ridiculous amount of money or a streaming platform throwing insane amount of money on teams also has a direct impact on the tournament organizer in some way or the other. So it's like you start here and it goes like, like everyone goes under the same bomb. I think for me, or at least for Nodwin right now, our challenges are because we've made that initial move where we've realized that we are not competing with publisher versus a publisher or a tournament organizer versus the tournament organizer. We consider ourselves as an entertainment company. So we are trying to on a daily basis trying to figure out, if a sponsor has to go and put money with Book My Show, or they're going to go and put money with Zomato Live, or they're going to do some big concert, how can I get that money and put it to gaming as a form of entertainment and as esport? And there the biggest problem for us is data. There is just not enough research. I mean, say you see ridiculous amount of numbers being thrown in media, 370 million gamers. Please find them for me. Because when the brand looks at it and when we do campaigns, that it's not even 10% of that, right? So for us, it's difficult because there is so much garbage data available in the market right now. And then the brands come with this unrealistic expectation saying, oh, I'm going to do this campaign and suddenly I'm going to sell like 10,000 motorcycles. It's not going to happen, So data has become extremely important for us. It's very, very hard to really sit down and be like, who's really a gamer? 16 to 25-year-old, how many of them play games? What game they play? Of course, there's one dominant game, BGMI. Everyone knows about it. But what is the day-to-day activity of this guy? What does he like to eat? What does he like to wear? What does he like to listen to in terms of music? This is the kind of data that's normally required for long-term big sponsorships. That's why cricket does really well in this country. Look at the revolution of cricket for the last 10, 15 years. We were not the biggest country when it came to money and cricket. We were good at cricket, but the money came in the last 10, 15 years because there was a coordination between BCCI and the broadcaster and the players and the association. Everyone came together, made it the biggest thing that's available in this country. We need that. That's the biggest challenge for me. The future, the only good sigh of relief for us is that, and I always say this to everyone, forget about what is happening in India today. Today, the 12 to 16-year-olds today who are playing Roblox, who are playing Minecraft, who are playing video games, they are the future of esports in this country. That generation, by the time it's 2030, 2031, when my son turns 18, 19, he's going to grow up with the idea of video games being entertainment. And that time, esports will be at a different peak altogether because he's not going to be like, I want to go for a concert or should I do video games? He's going to be like, I want to listen to music and I want to play video games and I want to play competitive video games, which unfortunately, the likes of Thug and some of the younger players right now, we still are that generation where we grew up with video games, but never really grew up with the idea that, oh, this could build a career. But the next generation is going to grow up with that. So I definitely have hopes for sure. And I hope I retire in the same industry and I don't have to look for another job because I'm too old to find another job now,
I mean, if you're too old, then, it gives us hope at least. Karan and Anuj, right? Let me go with Anuj first this time around. So, tough question. Let me give you a warning first. So, your games have a significantly large active player base, but only a small percentage of those are actually tuning into esports tournaments or even competing in esports tournaments. As custodians of the esports ecosystem for your individual games, how do you, or what steps are you taking rather to start growing that percentage of people that are now turning into more serious consumers of your game and more, esports invested consumers of your game?
So, you know, Nimish spoke before me, but you know, it's a famous thing that Akshat told me about 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, your esport players, right, are always just the pinnacle. It's just the tip of the iceberg, sort of, right? And that's how it should be. Because what he used to tell me, and what I believe as well, is your esport athletes, your professional players, they're the ones who basically create an aspiration, right? And as publishers, we are working towards creating that aspiration so that other people start playing the game, even at a, you know, sort of just for fun sort of thing, or they try to be part of that tip of the iceberg, right? So I think what esports is for a lot of publishers or developers like me is we're using that as a community building tool. We're using that as a creating an aspiration so that people sort of come towards our game, start playing our game, start watching our game. And again, I'm saying, I think from my perspective, the most important metric with esports for a publisher should be viewership.
Karan, BGMI recently
I
broke.
like this publisher.
So I'm in agreement with these guys. See, the boom in the market since 2018 in the mobile gaming space has been massive. OEMs have got cheaper and cheaper devices. It's made it easier for games like ours to be playing. There is Garena Free Fire is also being played. There are multiple games coming up. Indus is recently launched. So everyone's playing games and it's easy access. But there is one thing that we all forget to recognize. Like he said, 15 years back, cricket made its mark. It's actually 1995, where Pepsi signed the first deal with Sachin sir. That was the first deal that ESPN actually got into the country, and that's where the money started coming after how many years of cricket. Now, we've recently picked up, sponsors have just started understanding as to what this ecosystem is. You actually sit with a sponsor expert. I think Nimish will talk to you one-on-one, and he'll explain to you that CPM of certain games are actually better than a certain tournaments happening, which are number one in the country. So, yes, the potential is very high. And when you look at such high potentials, I think we at Krafton are making sure that there is stability at all levels. We're not focusing on just that, hey, this is a community activity, but at the same time, we feel responsible with BGMI that we need to support all ends of the ecosystem. Yes, it seems like, hey, let's do it overnight. Hey, I said something, let's have an action upon it. But year upon year, there has been an increase in viewership. Of course, the lockdown had higher viewership. People were watching from home. But post-lockdown, BGMI Esports has been growing year on year. The peaks have been growing year on year. The views have been growing year on year. Unfortunately, for us, we feel like, hey, we've not been able to do enough because there is only so much that you can do in a fiscal year. So year on year, we keep on doing what we've done in the past too and create something new to elevate the entire ecosystem. So while we would enjoy being the number one game, there is a lot of responsibility that comes into us also. So yes, we use it, like Anuj said, for community, for engagement with our audiences to get feedback. But at the same time, it's also to be also used as a stabilizing tool for the entire ecosystem.
Also, I'll just like to add to what Karan said, right? I think what fundamentally people need to understand is for anything to have a certain value or for people to actually have a demand, it needs to be not easily available, right? The challenge that we faced, and especially during COVID and post-COVID when there were a bunch of these streaming platforms pumping in a lot of money, is we ourselves made our own product easily available to everyone to watch. So there was no layering in the market. Like if I went and said something should be worth $200,000, and if somebody else was playing a tournament for $20,000, but it's the same players playing that tournament, it's the same teams participating, the same talent playing there, there is no differentiation between the product. We lost a lot of money and a lot of opportunity to actually create that layer, Today, the IPL does extremely well is because no matter what happens, even if if Saudi goes and pumps in all the money in the world with BCCI, they will not let Indian players play outside the IPL, right? They've created a niche very, very clearly saying you want to watch the best cricket, the best Indian players play T20 league, you have to watch the IPL. I think eventually, as Karan said, steps will have to be taken where we bracketize the talent the way Anuj said that the top layer talent needs to then be appreciated, then needs to also be rewarded. And with that will come the fact that people will put in the money as well. So it will happen. This sport is only technically 3 or 4 years old. If you consider COVID and you consider going out of the country and coming back into the country, I guess 2 years old. It's done fabulously well for last 2 years. Other sports have been there for 10, 15 years, 100 years. So, give it some time. As I said, we might not be able to actually enjoy what this industry becomes, but our children will definitely enjoy it.
Agreed. And to summarize, it feels like we're going from a moment of scarcity to abundance and now to exclusivity, right? Maybe this is sort of like a symptom of broken business models in the team space. A lot of teams did rely on prize money to be their primary source of revenue. You guys seem to be the exceptions, but a lot of youngsters seem to come in with some capital, daddy's money, and start a team, right? And essentially, that's what leads to poor incentives to play in every single tournament, which then leads to abundance. And everyone's like, oh, I've already seen this team playing in tournament A. What's the difference? They're playing in tournament B tomorrow. I don't want to watch that. Let me take this conversation in a slightly different direction now, right? We've talked about teams, we've talked about tournaments, we've talked about publishers. Talk to me about emerging technology, right? How has each of your organizations been adapting to the AI revolution / hype train? And I'll let you answer that one by one in your own individual spheres. Animesh, maybe we can start with you.
See, for us, I would say, we are a very simple organization. Okay? We stay away from the hype. We stay away from anything that we don't understand. I am not the kind of a guy who would want to keep jumping ship because I see the world jumping ship. For me, it's very important to take it slow, take it easy. Now, talking about things like AI, if I feel that I am not an expert in it, it's something that I won't, tell my organization or, people in my organization to follow. So, I haven't read a lot about it. I don't have time right now in my life to study about it, so I'm far away from it. For me, I stay away from hype train. But if you talk about emerging tech, definitely the supporting staff for my organization, who could not directly be associated with my organization, but supporting the people who are working with me, could be my creators, could be my players, could be my coach. I have seen somewhere that there are some really good young talent studying in, HS or college who have been adopting this stuff really cool and trying really fast and trying to implement them in the work we do. It could be my graphic designer who's now being able to generate VFX or GFX requirements way faster because of all their evolutions. But me, I feel that I am not right now in that space. So I'm not asking my organization to directly divulge into it. But yes, if I am managing a talent, I would say get a person who can do it faster. We know that AI is there. We know that AI artists are there. If I want some data analysis from one of my business development, I would say if you can't do it, get a person who can do it because we know these things can now happen faster. So I would say not directly jumping into the hype train, but if they are experts, why not take help? I don't need to be a jack of all trades and master of none. I would continue to prefer doing what I'm doing. Few stuff, little stuff, build it well, build it strong, and then move on to the other stuff.
Rishi, you've seen tech trends firsthand, right? I think you've been a part of the whole crypto wave at some point, the blockchain wave, the NFT wave. How are you seeing AI and how is it implemented in your organization, if at all?
Besides helping out for this panel, I think in esports, I'm not sure how much AI has penetrated or it has utility yet. I'm sure there are some kids sitting in a back room making some insane wrappers around whatever GPDs are available and doing some really cool stuff with esports. On an overview, I think what we need to realize is we need to use AI more as our assistants to do all the grunt work. I think the mistake that many people are doing is they're trying to get AI to do all the thinking, the creative stuff, the computational stuff while they do the grunt work. I think it needs to be reversed. The people that are using the AI need to be doing all the computation, need to be doing all the creative stuff and using the AI for their grunt work. I think it's slowly getting there as it keeps evolving. From an esports perspective, especially from a team perspective, probably just reduces having unnecessary staff at the grunt level where you can replace a lot of that with, like I said, less people can be working more efficiently. But other than that, right now, I think from a team's operating standpoint, I'm not sure what the applications are yet. As a publisher?
So as a publisher, we are checking in options, of course. There are different teams doing it. But for the esports team, as an esports wing, we are actually running a lot of permutations, competitions as to how to use AI. With regards to design and creativity, agree with Thug, like it has to be unique. And every time that we're thinking of doing something, we did try AI. It didn't turn out to be good. So we're not using it to ideate, but to fasten or number crunching, that's all what we're sticking at. Fastening the process is there, but thought processes is still being done by humans. So yeah.
So as developers, look, we were sort of creating our own AI for a long time, right? Like I mean, you build a single player game, you actually go ahead and build your own AI, right? So that happens all the time. We still continue to do that. But I think that the recent times, we did use a bit of AI asset creation, sort of cut down on the art pipelines for a particular project. In terms of the output, I still feel that, when an artist actually does his own work, there is a originality in it, and I know the models are getting better and better, but at least the ones that we were using, you could, if you had a good eye, you could tell these are AI created, so I don't think you can replace a human being. I think if that's the expectation, and this happens, right, when all this hype comes in, it's like, I think the time for replacing human beings will come, at least after us, or whoever's on stage, considering our age group, but right now, I think I agree with the rest of the panelists. Use it more as a accessory rather than something which is mainstream.
Before Nimish answer, I actually wanted to say one of the use cases of AI that someone in my team did, our DOP actually, just to experiment over the weekend, he used AI to write his own children's book, published it on Amazon, and before the weekend was over, made a few $100. And we were quite impressed because we had no idea. Like suddenly he's now a published author for a children's book, and he has no experience or expertise in any of those things.
That's hilarious, but I want to hear some esports use cases like this. Nimish, tell me more about what you're doing with AI.
Very similar to what everyone else said. I don't think we are yet there where it can replace a complete system, but I know that the broadcast team does use a bunch of AI softwares now to do language feeds, to do graphics. The business development team, every time I have like a weird idea, I have to visualize something, I try and put it in the AI software and it gives me an image that I can show the sponsor saying this is how it look like. So I use it on a regular basis for business development as well. But I also feel like with so much of technology and digital and internet, there is also this consumer behavior and even brand behavior where people are actually now wanting to go away from technology and wanting to get in-person experiences a lot more. Brands are asking for more and more experiential stuff now because they've realized that again, that period between 2014 to 2022 where people pumped in so much money to build their Instagram pages and Facebook pages. I think the Facebook pages are dead already. But people have realized that nothing can replace the good old physical human touch, where you bring in a people of 500 in a studio and you give them an experience versus 5,000 people like my post. It really means nothing. So I guess the world's also kind of flipping around now saying, let's get the human touch back and let's get humans behave like humans now.
Fantastic. All right, so we have a couple of minutes, and at the risk of starting a war, I must ask this question, okay? It's a rare moment where we have some of the most important stakeholders in the esports ecosystem sitting on one panel. We have tournament organizers, we have publishers, and we have teams. Open mic, anybody can pick it up and ask, what's one request you would have from another stakeholder, vice versa, of how you could redefine and shape the future of esports over the next few years?
Everyone's going to look at Karan right now.
No, actually, for me, I'm actually looking at everyone, right? And it's a request to everyone. I think, we saw this period where, for a little while, the game, and I say the game was not there, right? And I think we need to somehow change that because if we're looking at sustainability, I think there needs to be games, right, with a plural. And our industry and the esports industry needs to build upon a plethora of games rather than just one. Because I remember that period very well when the game was not there. And a lot of the people within it, especially, Thug will understand, it was a bad time for everyone, right? And I think that was because of the overdependence on one title. So a request to all the panelists here is, let's try and see what we can do and create that let's go from game to games, would be my request.
Yeah, I think my request to, again, everyone on the panel and the larger industry would be, uh, you know, just be open to taking risk, you know. It's an industry that's always going to keep evolving. Uh, my roots go back to Red Bull, and when I used to work for Red Bull, my boss from Austria told me that if you're doing a campaign and if you're not shitting your pants and if you're not scared that things will go wrong, maybe you're not doing a good job, you know. And it kind of stuck with me, right? Uh, it's okay for us to dream big. It's okay for us to fall on our face, but it's such a hollow thing to not dream, right? So my request to everyone on this panel would be, you know, try out new things. It's fine, you know. We will get there. We will fail in a few of them, but we will eventually get there. Same with the publisher as well. You know, I understand it comes with certain red tape and certain nuances that they cannot and can't do. But maybe find partners who can take the risk for you. You know, similar to other models around the world where publishers can't take that risk because, of course, they have a brand to protect. But then they let the tournament organizers go wild and really create something cool. So let's find a way to do that. But let's just shake this industry up and let's compete. As I said, let's compete with the likes of Book My Show and Zomato Live, because we are the real entertainment. Like, you know, movies are dead. Kids are playing video games, and I think that's the future.
Yeah, I think building upon that more from everyone else on the panel, just in general from the ecosystem, I think all the stakeholders need to start working more collaboratively and less competitively. I think we're very early on in the ecosystem going up against each other, whether it's orgs against each other, orgs against publishers, or publishers against you, or whichever combination you want to use, any stakeholder in the ecosystem, I think working together is going to build all of us up a lot better. It should be trying to monetize everything else outside of the ecosystem for each other rather than trying to monetize each other, because there isn't much money just between all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. We need to bring in outside capital and we need to grow the entire pie before we start fighting for a piece of it.
Yeah, Rushi just spoke my heart, so I'm good.
Amazing.
I think everybody said their bit, so in agreement to most of it, not them. I'm in agreement with all of them. We actually, all of us work together towards making this big. And one thing, not just to the panelists, to everyone, just be patient. We just started. There is a lot more time left for, you know, this to become the biggest. Be little patient. That's all I'm asking for, because sponsors are coming in, funds are coming in. Everything requires some sort of monetization. It's not going to happen overnight. We actually did think at a time that we asked for $1 million, it's just going to flow in. That's not the case. That is something that we have all realized in the ecosystem. So we have built upon that. We're creating something different. And we are letting the new sponsors or partners know that, hey, there is a way that you can increase your reach by partnering with esports. Like Anuj said, agree with him, just not BGMI. The esports team at Krafton India right now is working on other games, focusing there, trying to push them too. And while we are on this venture, it's also that, hey, yeah, we do understand there is BGMI, but there is other games that other individuals play too. There is Road to Valor Empires, which is not a lot talked about. But there are tournaments happening every month. Every month there is something or another happening in Road to Valor Empires, and the players are like, sir, when can we get a 1 crore tournament? So there is something like that, of that sort happening, and we're hoping that someday we will be able to get that as a prize pool too. So that's the vision. Just be a little patient, work with each other. Let's not have any arguments, fights. Let's understand, because the biggest issue has been the miscommunication. There isn't an issue here, it's just miscommunication that A says to B, B says to C, C comes back to A, and there is nothing actually in there. So I think it's just more collaborative effort for the entire ecosystem, and we can always do better.
Well said. Looks like most of you are on the same page here. And, you know, while you've all very diplomatically poured the oil on the floor, let me light the match and strike the match and throw it on the oil, right? My advice to any stakeholder that's trying to enter the ecosystem, it's unsolicited advice, so take it as you will. Please don't start a P&L without knowing where the P is going to come from and when the P is going to come. Because we've seen that ruining the industry at least 5 times over now, and we don't want a repeat of that. Anyway, thank you everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this panel. Fantastic discussion. Hope you've taken something away from this. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.